The wind howled like a wounded beast as Vic tightened the straps of her backpack, her fingers numb from the cold that seeped through her gloves. The storm had come fast, faster than any forecast predicted, and now the trees around her creaked and groaned under the weight of snow and wind. She'd meant to return to base camp 2 hours ago, but the fresh tracks she'd found, large, deep paw prints too precise to be a bear's, had pulled her deeper into the forest. She was too close to something extraordinary to turn back. Her breath came in rapid bursts as she stumbled through the dense underbrush, headlamp flickering under the relentless sleet. She'd spent years studying wolves, chasing elusive packs through North America's most remote regions, always with cameras, notes, and rationality as her tools. But nothing in her field guides could explain the uneasy electricity in the air or the way the forest seemed to be watching her now. A branch cracked behind her. Vic froze. She turned slowly, scanning the dark trees, but saw nothing. Just her overworked mind playing tricks, she told herself. Still, she quickened her pace, boots crunching in the shallow snow. The wind shifted, and with it came a sound that froze her blood, a low, guttural growl. Not one but several. Surrounding her. She spun around, flashlight catching glints of eyes. 6 pairs. No, 7. Silent shapes moving just beyond the tree line. She reached for the tranquilizer gun slung over her shoulder, but before her fingers closed around it, something hit her from behind. Hard. The world tilted, spun, then went black. When she came to, it wasn't in a hospital or a ranger's cabin. It was in a cave lit by flickering torches, the air warm and smelling faintly of pine, and something else, something feral. Her hands were bound, not unkindly, but securely, with soft rope. A fire crackled nearby. She sat up, heart hammering. Shapes moved beyond the firelight. Women, tall and lean, their eyes luminous, their movements unnervingly graceful. One stepped forward. The others parted for her as if by instinct. She was striking, not conventionally beautiful, but arresting. Muscular. Poised. A long scar ran down the left side of her neck, disappearing beneath her dark shirt. Her eyes were amber. Not metaphorically, they shimmered gold, reflecting the flames with an intensity that made Vic forget how to breathe. "You're awake," the woman said, voice low and husky. "Good. Where am I?" Vic rasped. "You crossed into our territory," the woman replied simply, crouching beside her. "That's not usually a mistake people survive." Vic's heart stuttered. "Who are you?" A smile ghosted over the woman's lips. "Lena." She didn't say more. Just Lena. Vic looked around, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. The women were dressed in furs and leather, adorned with feathers, bones, and beads. Tribal, but not primitive. Powerful. Watching her in silence. "What do you want from me?" Vic asked. Lena's eyes locked onto hers, and for a terrifying second, Vic felt stripped bare. "That depends. Are you a threat?" "I'm a biologist," Vic said quickly. "I study wolves. That's all." "I wasn't trying to. You followed them here," Lena interrupted. "You didn't just stumble into this storm." Vic hesitated. "No. I saw tracks." "I thought," she trailed off. What had she thought? That she discovered a new pack? That she could document it and get another paper published? "Curiosity is dangerous in these woods," Lena murmured. "But you're lucky. We don't kill without reason." One of the women approached Lena and spoke in a language Vic didn't recognize, sharp, fluid syllables. Lena listened, then nodded. "You'll stay here tonight. Tomorrow, we decide what to do with you." Vic wanted to protest, but she was exhausted, her body aching, her mind reeling. And despite everything, she didn't feel afraid. Not truly. There was something in Lena's presence, an unspoken promise that she was safe. For now. Lena stood and walked away, her figure disappearing into the shadows. The other women returned to whatever they were doing, sharpening weapons, tending to herbs, preparing food. It was a strange, mesmerizing scene. Vic lay back down slowly, staring at the flickering fire. She should be terrified. But all she felt was the pull of something ancient, something wild awakening inside her. And she couldn't help wondering about the woman with eyes like gold and a voice that vibrated through her bones. Vic awoke to the scent of smoke, herbs, and the crisp sting of mountain air drifting into the cave. The fire had died down, leaving soft embers glowing in the pit beside her. Her wrists were no longer bound, and her boots had been removed, replaced by a thick fur blanket wrapped tightly around her legs. She sat up slowly, her body still sore, but her mind sharper alert. The cave was quieter than before. Only 2 women remained near the entrance, speaking in low voices. They didn't look at her, but she knew they were aware she was awake. She stood, legs trembling slightly, and walked toward the mouth of the cave. Outside, the snow had lessened, revealing a dense forest of towering pines and jagged rocks. The sky was pale, heavy with clouds that hadn't yet decided if they were done with their fury. Lena was there, leaning against a rock, arms crossed, eyes fixed on something distant. Her dark hair was wind-tossed, her jaw clenched. There was a wildness to her, something raw and untamed. Vic didn't speak at first. She simply stood in silence, drawn toward Lena, without understanding why. Finally, Lena spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "You should be dead." Vic flinched. "Thanks for the warm welcome." Lena turned to face her, and those amber eyes locked onto hers again. "That wasn't sarcasm. It's a fact. Outsiders don't come here. And when they do, they don't leave." "Then why am I still breathing?" Vic asked. Lena's gaze narrowed. "Because something stopped me. Something about you. That shouldn't have made her heart race."
"It did."
Vic swallowed hard. "What are you all? Some kind of cult?" Lena's lip curled slightly. "We are what your world fears. What it pretends doesn't exist. We are the daughters of the wild. The ones who refuse to be tamed." Vic blinked. "You talk like I'm not human?" Lena stepped closer. "I was.
Once.
Until the forest chose me. You expect me to believe that?" "I don't care what you believe," Lena said. "You asked a question. I answered." Vic wanted to laugh, wanted to scream, wanted to understand. "I'm a scientist. I believe in data, in evidence, not magic." "Then maybe you're not as smart as you think," Lena replied and walked past her, brushing Vic's shoulder as she passed. The touch was electric. Vic closed her eyes, steadying herself. She followed Lena down a narrow path, deeper into the woods, until they reached a clearing. A small village of wooden cabins and canvas tents nestled beneath the trees, smoke rising from chimneys, voices carrying on the wind. Women of all ages moved through the space, training with blades, tending fires, working with herbs. They looked up as Vic passed, some curious, some wary. All aware. Lena led her to a cabin near the edge of the camp. "You'll stay here," she said. "For now." "Prisoner?" Vic asked.
"Guest."
"If you behave." "And if I don't?" Lena's smile was all teeth. "Then I stop letting my instincts be kind." Vic stepped inside. The cabin was simple but warm. Furs lined the bed, shelves held jars of dried plants, and a basin of water steamed near the hearth. She turned to Lena, who leaned against the doorway. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you're not just curious. You're searching for something. I can see it in your eyes." "You don't know me." "Not yet," Lena said. "But I will." Vic's breath caught. The air between them thickened, charged. Lena stepped back, her expression unreadable.
"Rest."
"You'll need it." Then she was gone. Vic sat on the edge of the bed, heart pounding, mind spinning. Everything about this place defied logic. And Lena was the biggest mystery of all. She was danger and safety, coldness and fire. And Vic hated how much she wanted to understand her. The sun dipped lower. Shadows stretched across the walls. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. One of the younger women entered, carrying a bowl of soup and a small loaf of bread. She placed it gently on the table and gave Vic a shy look. "You're the first outsider allowed to see this place," she said. "Why me?" Vic asked. "Because she saw something in you." "Lena?" The girl nodded. The forest doesn't make mistakes. If you're here, it's because you're meant to be. Vic didn't respond. She ate in silence, every bite grounding her. Later, as she lay beneath thick blankets, the sounds of howls echoed in the distance, long, haunting, and full of something primal. She closed her eyes, and instead of fear, she felt the pull again. A magnetic thread between her and the woman with golden eyes. Vic didn't believe in fate, but something was happening. Something she couldn't explain, and part of her didn't want to. The next morning, Vic woke to the sound of drumming, low, rhythmic, and primal, as if the forest itself had a heartbeat. The light that filtered through the cracks in the wooden cabin walls was silver and sharp, casting shifting shadows across the fur-draped floor. Her muscles ached, but her senses were heightened. Every breath tasted of pine, ash, and something deeper, something wild. She stepped outside, and the village was alive with motion. Women painted with earth-toned markings moved through the camp in synchronized movements.
Some were chanting softly.
Others were sharpening weapons or preparing bundles of herbs. And in the center of it all, Lena stood bare-armed, eyes closed, her face painted in sweeping streaks of charcoal and crimson. She looked almost otherworldly, less human, more force of nature. Vic watched from the edge of the clearing, unnoticed, until Lena's eyes snapped open and locked on her. Without a word, Lena lifted her chin slightly, gesturing for Vic to come forward. The women parted as she walked through them, their eyes studying her, weighing her, judging her. Lena didn't speak until Vic was standing only inches from her. "Today," she said softly, "we see if the forest accepts you." "Accepts me?" Vic echoed, her voice tight. "You said I was your guest." "Guests don't stay," Lena replied. "But you've been marked." "Marked." Vic took a step back. "What the hell does that mean?" Lena's eyes flashed. "It means you survived the storm. You weren't torn apart when we found you, and you're still breathing even after stepping onto sacred land. That doesn't happen without reason." "And if the forest rejects me?" Vic asked. Lena leaned in, her voice a low growl against her ear. "Then I'll be the one to end you." Vic's breath hitched, but she didn't flinch. She didn't look away. Something in Lena's gaze softened, just for a second. "Follow me." She was led to the edge of the village, where a circle of stones surrounded a pit of blackened earth. Several women stood waiting, each holding a curved blade at their side. In the center was a wooden post, carved with intricate runes. "You'll face 3 trials," Lena said, stepping into the circle. "Strength, instinct, surrender." "Surrender?" Vic asked. "To what?" "You'll see." The first trial was strength. One of the women, a towering figure named Rhea, stepped forward. Without ceremony, she lunged. Vic barely had time to brace herself before they collided. She hit the ground hard, her shoulders screaming in protest. But instinct took over. She twisted, used her legs to push Rhea off balance, scrambled back to her feet. They circled, grunting, striking, countering. It wasn't just about brute force, it was about resilience. Rhea was stronger, faster. But Vic was strategic. She waited, endured, used Rhea's momentum against her. When she finally pinned the woman to the ground with a triumphant cry, the circle erupted in approving murmurs. Lena's expression remained unreadable. The second trial was instinct. Vic was blindfolded, spun, and led into the woods. When the cloth was removed, she was alone. No weapons. Just trees, silence, and the sound of something moving in the shadows. Her breath came fast. This was no simulation. No controlled experiment. Whatever was out there, it was real. She moved carefully, crouching low, ears attuned to every crack of twig and rustle of leaves. A growl echoed to her left. She turned. A blur of gray darted past her. Then another.
And another.
Not wolves. Not exactly. Shapes that moved like animals, but with too much intent.
She ran.
Branches tore at her clothes. Blood welled on her arms, her cheek. Something clipped her ankle and she fell hard, rolling down a slope into a shallow stream. She gasped, soaked, freezing. And then, silence. A figure emerged from the trees.
Lena.
Alone, eyes wild, breathing hard. Enough, she growled to the woods. The shadows stilled. The presence retreated. Lena stepped into the water, her boots splashing as she knelt beside Vic. You weren't supposed to last that long, she said, her voice laced with something almost like admiration. Vic looked up at her, shaking. Love what you've seen so far, and want to help me keep creating these awesome stories on this channel? Then subscribe and hit the bell. Your subscription supports the channel and makes sure you get more exciting stories. What the hell were those? Guardians, Lena whispered. Spirits of the forest. They don't obey commands. Only instinct. And they didn't kill me. No, Lena said, her eyes narrowing. They didn't. She helped Vic up, their bodies pressed close as she supported her weight. The air between them cracked with tension. Vic's hands were on Lena's shoulders, her fingers digging into bare skin. Lena's breath hitched. The third trial, she said, not pulling away, is surrender. Vic's voice was a whisper. To you? To the truth inside you, Lena said. You're fighting it, but the forest already sees who you are. Vic didn't answer. Couldn't. Her blood still raced from the run, from the fight, from Lena's hands steadying her, from the way her lips hovered just close enough to burn. But then Lena stepped back. The moment broke. Return to the village, she said. Rest. Tomorrow, you'll know if you belong. And then she vanished into the woods, leaving Vic alone, soaked, shaking, and more confused than ever. But beneath the confusion, beneath the fear, desire burned. Fierce and undeniable. The night came heavy with silence, and yet Vic couldn't sleep. Her body was wrapped in warmth, but her skin still tingled from the cold bite of the stream, and from the memory of Lena's hands on her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flashes, amber eyes in the darkness, the blur of shapes stalking her in the forest, the echo of drums vibrating through her bones. But deeper than that were the dreams. Vivid, visceral, and so unlike anything her rational mind could explain. She saw herself running barefoot through the woods, her limbs lean and fast, her lungs full of crisp air. She heard howls in the distance and knew she was one of them, not prey, but pack. She felt the heat of breath on her neck, the weight of another body pressed against her back, fingers in her hair, lips at her ear, whispering her name not like a question but like a claim. She woke with a gasp, sweat dampening her skin, heart thundering. It was still dark outside. A faint orange glow lit the sky beyond the trees, dawn creeping in. She stood, restless, drawn outside. The village was quiet. Smoke drifted from a few of the cabins, but the clearing was empty, except for one figure at the edge of the woods, perched on a boulder, legs stretched long, one arm resting casually across her thigh. Lena. She turned her head slightly as Vic approached, as if she'd known she would come. Couldn't sleep? She asked, her voice softer in the stillness. Not even close, Vic murmured. Lena didn't look at her at first. Her eyes were fixed on the treetops, gold flecks catching the light. The first few nights are always like that. Your senses are opening, tuning in. Vic crossed her arms, trying to ground herself. I'm not turning into one of you, if that's what you're implying. Lena gave a slow, half-smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. A wolf doesn't become a tree just because it walks through a forest. But the scent of the trees never leaves her. That did something to Vic, something deep. What happens if I pass all your tests? I just live here? Join your pack? What would that even mean? Lena finally looked at her, and the force of that gaze hit like a wave. It means you stop pretending the world out there is the only one that matters. It means you stop lying to yourself about who you are. You don't even know me. I know your heartbeat when you're afraid. I know your scent when you're angry. I know how your pupils dilate when you look at me. Vic's breath caught. You've been watching me, always. The words weren't threatening. They were undeniable. Vic stepped closer.
Why?
What do you see? Lena stood. She was slightly taller, her presence somehow even more commanding when up close. I see someone who spent her life clinging to logic because feeling is too dangerous. Someone who thinks desire is a distraction. But out here, desire is survival. The air between them sparked. Vic's fingers curled at her sides, her throat dry. Is this another trial? No, Lena said. This is me. And for a moment, Vic forgot the cold, forgot the fear, forgot everything except the burn of her curiosity, the ache low in her belly, the way Lena was looking at her like she already knew what she tasted like when she broke. But just as Vic's hand lifted, just as she reached toward Lena's collarbone, Lena stepped back. Not yet, she said, voice rough. If I touch you now, I won't stop. Vic's entire body shivered, not from cold, but from the restraint in Lena's voice, from the way her own body screamed for more. But Lena turned, fading into the woods like mist. And Vic stood there, trembling, torn between fury and desire, need and confusion. Later, the camp stirred. Women began to gather. Lena returned, her expression hard again, no trace of the vulnerability she'd shown. You passed the trials, she said flatly, in front of the others. The forest didn't reject you. A murmur rippled through the group, some approving, some not. One woman stepped forward. Older, her gray braids wrapped around her head like a crown. Her name was Mireia, and her voice was sharp. Passing doesn't mean she belongs. The bond hasn't formed. Vic frowned. What bond? Lena didn't look at her. The final mark. The one that only reveals itself when you're ready. Mireia turned to Vic, her gaze assessing. Until then, you stay under watch. What happens if it never comes? Vic asked. Then you leave, Lena said. Or you die. And with that, she walked away. Vic felt every eye on her as the circle broke. She was inside, but not accepted. Trusted, but not safe. And with every step Lena took away from her, the ache in Vic's chest deepened. That night, the dreams returned. Stronger. She heard Lena's voice in them, whispering things she couldn't remember when she woke, her skin burning with need, her heart hollow with something that felt disturbingly like longing. The days that followed unfolded like a fever dream. Vic moved through the village half as an outsider, half as something more. The women watched her with quiet intensity, some with curiosity, others with open distrust, but none dared touch her. Not after Lena's declaration. Still, the air hung heavy with questions. What did it mean that she passed the trials? What was this final bond they kept whispering about? No one would explain, not even Mireia, who now kept a constant, silent watch over her. Lena, on the other hand, had become a ghost. She appeared only at dusk, leading training sessions or rituals, speaking little, her eyes avoiding Vic's entirely. It was maddening. That woman had looked at her like prey, like a challenge, like she belonged in her hands, and now, silence. Distance. Vic threw herself into understanding the village's customs. She shadowed the herbalists, learned the meanings of their sigils, the history carved into the totems near the river. Every piece she uncovered led her closer to the truth that no one dared say outright. These women weren't just survivors of the wild. They were the wild. At night, the dreams grew sharper. She felt teeth at her neck, a hand fisting her hair, a voice commanding her to surrender. Sometimes she woke with her thighs clenched and her fingers buried in the furs beneath her, Lena's name on her lips. It was a slow unraveling, a surrender she hadn't agreed to, but couldn't stop. On the fifth night, everything changed. It began with a storm, not of rain, but of howls. Dozens of them, echoing from the far edges of the forest. Vic stood outside her cabin, heart pounding. The village was silent, every woman frozen in place, their heads tilted toward the sky. Lena emerged from the largest cabin, eyes burning. To the border, she commanded. Now. The pack moved as one. Vic followed, not knowing why, just that she had to. The forest was a blur of motion, shadows leaping between branches, feet barely touching the ground. They reached the ridge just before sunrise. There, in the distance, stood figures. Not wolves. Men. Armed. Watching. Hunters, Lena spat. They've found the edge. Do they know what's here? Vic asked. Lena turned to her, eyes hard. They suspect. And if they step 1 foot into our land, we'll tear them apart. There was something feral in her voice, something that thrilled and terrified Vic. The group returned to the village before the men could breach the line, but the damage was done. Tension hung in the air like smoke. That night, Vic couldn't stay still. She found herself wandering to the riverbank, to the place she'd first spoken to Lena alone. And she was there, waiting, sitting on a rock, bare-armed again, her skin glowing under the moonlight. Why are you avoiding me? Vic asked, stepping into the clearing. Lena didn't turn. Because touching you would be a mistake. Then, why does it feel like the only thing that makes sense? Lena looked at her now, and all the pain, the hunger, the restraint she'd been holding back surged to the surface. Because it is, she said, standing. But if I take you now, I'll break the bond before it forms. It has to come from you, not just your body. Your choice. Vic's heart raced. What bond? Lena stepped closer, voice low. The one that ties you to the land.
To me.
If it's real, it marks you. It binds us. Like fate. Like truth. Their breaths mingled. Vic reached out, her hand brushing Lena's collarbone. She felt the pulse there, rapid.
Alive.
Then let me choose, she whispered. Lena's restraint snapped like a branch underfoot. She gripped Vic's waist, pulled her flush, their mouths crashing together. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't hesitant. It was heat, fury, hunger, all the nights of restraint exploding in one desperate kiss. Vic moaned, her hands in Lena's hair, her body arching into the alphas. Lena's thighs slid between hers, pressing hard, drawing a gasp from Vic's lips. It was wildfire. It was war. And yet, when Lena pulled back, her chest heaving, her eyes dark with need, she didn't let go. I could lose control, she warned. Then lose it, Vic breathed. I'm not afraid of you. You should be. But I'm not. Lena kissed her again, slower this time, deeper. Her hands trembled as they explored Vic's skin, reverent and rough all at once. But just as her mouth reached Vic's throat, just as her teeth grazed her pulse, she stopped. Froze. Pulled back. Her hand shot to Vic's shoulder, eyes wide. Your skin, she whispered. Vic looked down. A faint mark glowed there, shimmering, ancient, shaped like a crescent claw. Lena's hand hovered over it. The bond, she breathed. It's real. Vic stared at it, stunned. She hadn't felt anything. No pain. No flash. Just heat. Desire.
Trust.
Lena stepped back, eyes filled with something Vic had never seen in her before. Fear. You need to go.
Now.
What?
Why?
Because if you stay here tonight, I won't be able to stop. And that mark means you're more than a guest now. Then what am I? Lena's voice was a growl. Mine. The forest felt different now. Every sound was louder, every scent sharper, every heartbeat around her a drum against the silence. Vic moved through the village like she was dreaming, but she was wide awake, her skin still tingling where the mark had appeared, glowing faintly under the collar of her shirt. No one said a word, but everyone noticed. Their eyes lingered longer, their movements slowed when she passed. Even Mireia, once stern and cold, watched her with a trace of something like reverence or fear. But it was Lena who had vanished. Again. After the bond mark surfaced, she disappeared into the trees, taking nothing with her, not even her weapons. No one questioned it. She always runs when it's too much, Mireia told Vic, sitting beside her at the fire that night. She thinks solitude will quiet the beast. And does it? Vic asked. Mireia stared into the flames.
No.
But she hasn't learned that yet. Vic didn't sleep. She walked the edge of the camp, eyes flicking toward the forest, waiting for a glimpse of dark hair, a glint of gold in the night. Nothing came. The next morning, Vic packed a satchel and slipped away before dawn. No one stopped her. Maybe they knew there was no use. She followed her instincts, The same instincts that had led her through the trials, through the fear, through Lena's heat and restraint. Now, those instincts burned like a flame under her skin. It took hours to find her. Lena sat alone at the edge of a cliff, legs dangling over the edge, the wind whipping her hair across her face. She didn't turn when Vic approached. "I told you to go." "You said a lot of things," Vic replied, breathless. "But none of them were what you're actually feeling." Lena didn't move. "You don't understand what this bond means." "Then explain it." "It means I can't let you go now," Lena said, voice tight. "It means if something happens to you, I feel it. It means I'll rip through blood and bone to protect you, even if it kills me." Vic sat beside her, close but not touching. "So, it's like a curse?" "It's not a curse." Lena finally looked at her, and there was agony in her eyes. "It's sacred."
Rare.
"It only happens once. And I thought I'd already lost mine." Vic's stomach twisted. "You had someone before." A nod. "Her name was Marin. She was fire and chaos and laughter. We bonded under the blood moon just like this. I thought we were invincible." Vic didn't breathe. "What happened?" Lena's jaw tensed. "The hunters. Years ago. They came through the southern ridge, thought we were witches, beasts. They captured her. I led half the pack into their camp to get her back. We succeeded. But she was already gone. I found her body tied to a tree. Burned." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush. Vic closed her eyes. "I'm sorry. I became alpha that night," Lena continued, her voice dead. "Not because I wanted it. Because there was no one else left strong enough to lead. The mark vanished from my skin when she died. I never thought I'd feel it again." "And now you do," Vic whispered. "And now I'm terrified." Lena turned her face toward the wind, and for the first time, she looked small.
Human.
"This is bigger than desire. It's instinct.
Soul.
It pulls at you until you break."
Vic leaned in.
"Then break." Lena's laugh was bitter. "If I give in, I won't be able to hold back. The bond will consume us both. Maybe that's the point. And if I lose you like I lost her?" Vic reached for her hand. "Then we face that together. But I won't let you fight it alone." Lena's fingers gripped hers like a lifeline. They sat there in silence, the storm of emotion between them louder than the wind. But peace never lasted long in the forest. A scream shattered the air.
Distant.
From the camp. Both women shot up. Without another word, they ran, feet pounding through leaves, hearts synced like war drums. When they arrived, chaos greeted them. Smoke.
Blood.
The village torn open. Several women were injured. And near the fire pit, Mireia knelt, her arm bleeding, her eyes furious. "They came during the morning circle," she spat. "Just a few.
Scouts. Armed.
Looking for something." Lena's voice was ice. "What did they take?" Mireia looked up. "They weren't after supplies. They asked for the one with the mark." Vic's blood ran cold. "Me." Lena stepped between her and the others, body tense, protective, trembling with restrained rage. "They won't touch you." Mireia stood. "They've seen too much. We must prepare to strike before they return with more." "No," Lena said. "This is no longer just defense." Her eyes glowed gold. "This is war." And for the first time, Vic understood what it meant to be bound to a wolf. It meant standing beside her not just in passion, but in blood, in fury, in fire. And she wasn't afraid. The scent of blood still clung to the air. Vic stood at the edge of the clearing, fists clenched, watching the injured being tended to with swift, practiced hands. The Matilla moved like a single organism, efficient, silent, bracing for war. Lena paced near the fire, her posture rigid, jaw tight, eyes burning with restrained fury. The mark on Vic's shoulder pulsed faintly beneath her shirt, a dull heat that wouldn't fade. She could feel Lena even from a distance, her rage, her fear, the part of her that wanted to fight, and the part that wanted to run. But this time, Vic wasn't letting her run. "What's the plan?" she asked, stepping into Lena's path. Lena didn't answer right away. Her gaze flicked to Vic's shoulder, then to her eyes, something unreadable crossing her expression. They were scouts, she said finally. Not hunters. Not yet. But they will come back. And next time, it won't be 5. It'll be 50. Then we hit first. Lena arched a brow. You were a scientist 2 weeks ago. Now you're suggesting a full assault. I'm not suggesting. I'm offering. I'm in this, Lena. With you. Lena's throat bobbed as she swallowed hard, the tension between them tightening like a wire. We can't win a war with teeth and claws against rifles. Then we use strategy. We find where they're camped, what they know, how many there are. Mireia joined them then, her arm bandaged, face still smeared with blood. There's a way, but it's dangerous. We'd need to go through the ash hollow. A murmur passed through the few women nearby. The name carried weight.
Fear.
No one goes there, Lena said sharply. That part of the forest is cursed. No, Mireia said. It's forgotten. And they wouldn't expect us to come from there. Lena hesitated. Vic stepped closer. What is it? A deep gorge, Lena muttered. Twisting paths. Poisoned roots. Old things that never sleep. So we go around? No time. Mireia cut in. If they come back with more men, they'll raise everything. Silence settled between them. Then Lena looked at Vic again. You want to fight? You come with me. They left that night. Vic, Lena, and 3 others. Rhea, fierce and loyal. Sol, fast and silent. And Nara, a tracker with eyes like obsidian. They moved as one, disappearing into the dense, shadow-laced paths of Ash Hollow. From the moment they stepped past the first twisted tree, the air changed.
Thicker. Charged.
Vic felt it in her teeth. In her chest. The way the forest watched. The way the ground pulsed like it had a heartbeat of its own. Stay close, Lena murmured beside her. Don't speak unless I say. Don't stray from the path. I'm not scared, Vic whispered. You should be. And yet Lena's fingers brushed against hers as they walked. A small, grounding touch. Not control. Connection. They traveled through darkness and fog, through vines that curled like fingers and stones marked with symbols Vic didn't understand but instinctively respected. Once, they passed something that made even Lena flinch, a mass of bone and fur, long decayed, its skull cracked open like something had clawed its way out. Vic didn't ask. She didn't want to know. By dawn, they reached a ridge overlooking a wide clearing, tents, vehicles, equipment. The hunter's base. Dozens of men moved through it, armed to the teeth. But they weren't alone. A cage stood near the center. And inside it, bound and bruised, was one of the women from the village.
Sarah.
Vic's stomach twisted. They're experimenting, she whispered. Lena's face darkened. They think we're animals. They want to prove it. Then we end this, Vic said. No, Lena replied, her voice sharp. Not yet. She turned to the others. We wait until nightfall. We move fast, strike hard. Free Sarah, destroy their supplies. No survivors. Vic hesitated. No survivors? Lena looked at her. You felt it. The bond doesn't lie. You're one of us now. They came for you. They'll come again. We don't give second chances. Vic knew she was right, but something in her still resisted. Killing wasn't science. It wasn't defense. It was different. Personal. The others settled in to rest. Vic sat beside Lena, their backs against a moss-covered rock. You okay? She asked. Lena didn't answer for a long time. Then, I wasn't ready for you. Vic turned to her. And now? Now I can't breathe without wondering where you are. Vic leaned in slowly, their foreheads touching. Then don't breathe without me. The kiss that followed was quiet but deep, all the heat of the last one restrained into something more dangerous. Control. Lena's hand slid up her thigh, possessive and careful, but just as the heat began to rise again, a low growl rippled through the trees. Nara stood, tense. Something's coming. They were up in seconds. Shadows shifted. Movement below. Not just men. Not just vehicles. Something bigger. Vic's breath caught. What is that? Ria's voice was tight. They've brought machines. And in the clearing below, a massive armored truck pulled in, bearing the insignia of a private military force. Not poachers. Not rogue hunters. Professionals. Funded.
Organized.
They're not here for study, Lena said quietly. They're here for eradication. The plan was no longer about freeing Sarah. It was about survival. And suddenly, Vic understood why Lena had been so afraid of the bond. Because now, if Vic died, Lena would break. The moment the sun dipped below the horizon, the forest held its breath. The clearing below was bathed in flickering firelight, and shadows moved like threats between the tents. Sarah's cage sat untouched, her head down, chest rising faintly. She was alive but fading. Vic crouched beside Lena in the underbrush, heart hammering so loudly she swore they'd hear it in the camp. The others were silent, tense, waiting. We go in 3 waves, Lena whispered, her voice barely audible. Ria and Nara take the left, disable the generators. Sol takes the rear, smoke bombs and distractions. You're with me. We go straight for the cage. Vic nodded, throat dry. And the men? If they raise a weapon, Lena said, her eyes glinting, we raise claws. It was a pact sealed in silence. When the signal came, Nara's soft whistle through the trees, the world erupted. Smoke spilled into the camp. Shadows darted between tents. Chaos bloomed like fire. Vic ran at Lena's side, swift and focused. The bond between them wasn't just emotional anymore. It was physical, primal, instinctual. They moved like one. A soldier turned, gun rising. Lena dropped him before he could shout, her body a blur of speed and force. Vic hesitated only a second before taking his radio and kicking his weapon deep into the mud. No time for guilt. Not anymore. They reached the cage as another figure stepped into their path, heavily armored, masked, already aiming. Vic didn't think. She launched herself at him, grabbing the barrel of the rifle as it fired. The shot missed, grazing her arm, heat and pain flashing red, but she didn't let go. Lena tackled the man from behind, teeth bared, rage unchained. When it was over, the soldier lay still, and Vic stood shaking, blood dripping from her arm, adrenaline screaming through her veins. You're hurt, Lena said, reaching for her. It's nothing, Vic breathed. Open the cage. Lena tore the lock off with a grunt, and Sarah fell forward into Vic's arms, weak but conscious. Go, Lena ordered. Take her back.
I'll hold the line.
I'm not leaving you, Vic said. Lena gripped her face, forehead to forehead, eyes wild. You have to. You're bonded. If you die, I break. Then don't let me die, Vic snapped. We go together. And that was it. No more arguments. No more walls. They moved like fire through the camp, Sol joining them mid-run. Blood on her hands, eyes wide. Backups coming, heavies. How many? Lena asked. Too many. They reached the tree line as bullets tore through the night, cracking branches and trees. Vic shielded Sarah with her body as they ducked behind a ridge. One of the bullets struck too close, splintering a tree near Lena's head. Vic screamed her name, then everything went still. For a terrifying second, Lena didn't move. Then her eyes opened, and they weren't human anymore. Gold, glowing, ancient. She stood slowly. Get her out of here, she said to Sol.
Now.
Sol hesitated, then nodded, lifting Sarah and disappearing into the dark. Vic stayed. Lena, run. No, Lena turned to her, something breaking inside. If I shift, I won't be able to stop. I'll tear through them, and maybe through you too. Vic stepped closer. Then I'll be the one who brings you back. The moon crested the horizon, full, massive, red as blood. Lena's breath hitched. Her skin shimmered, her bones shaking beneath the surface. Go, she growled, voice raw.
Please.
But Vic didn't go. She wrapped her arms around her, pressing her face to Lena's neck. I'm not afraid of what you are. I'm afraid of losing you. And that was the thread that snapped the last restraint. Lena's body shifted with a sound like thunder, a blur of fur, muscle, light. Her form grew taller, stronger, more terrifying than Vic had ever imagined, and yet, in her golden eyes, Vic still saw her. Still saw Lena. The wolf let out a roar that shook the forest. Soldiers screamed. Gunfire exploded. But Lena was faster than bullets. Death in motion. Vic watched her tear through their line like wind through dry leaves. Elegant, brutal, precise. And then it was over. The camp burned. The remaining soldiers fled into the woods, leaving only fire and blood behind. Vic ran toward her, stumbling over bodies and debris. Lena stood in the middle of the clearing, chest heaving, muzzle streaked with blood, but her eyes found Vic's instantly. She didn't move, didn't shift back. "Lena," Vic whispered, stepping forward. The others hung back, watching, waiting. "It's me. You're safe." Lena's massive form trembled. She took a step back. Another. Vic reached up, placing her hand against the coarse fur of her cheek. "Come back to me." A moment. A heartbeat. Then light. Bones realigning. Skin replacing fur. Lena collapsed into Vic's arms, naked, shivering, covered in dirt and blood. But alive. "You stayed," she breathed. "Of course I did," Vic said, holding her close. "We belong to each other now." And in the distance, as dawn bled over the treetops, the wolves began to howl, not in mourning, but in victory. The forest hadn't known peace in days. The fire left by the hunters had been extinguished, but its smoke still clung to the trees, to the fur of those who'd shifted, to the air between every breath. The camp bore its wounds like armor, tents rebuilt, blood scrubbed from stone, eyes sharpened with something colder than rage, vigilance. Vic moved through it differently now. Not as an outsider. Not even as a guest. As something claimed. The mark on her shoulder no longer pulsed, it glowed. Subtle, steady, like it had become a part of her blood. And the whispers had changed. Where once there had been suspicion, now there was awe. And resentment. It coiled through glances not met directly, through silences that stretched too long when she entered a room.
Some saw her as a sign.
Others as a threat. But Lena? Lena was a storm barely held in check. Since the battle, she'd rarely left Vic's side, and when she did, she returned with her fists bloody and her jaw set. She wouldn't speak of it. Wouldn't explain the tension in her shoulders or the way she snapped at the others during council meetings. Vic tried to ask once. "What's wrong?" Lena had kissed her, hard and quick, and said, "Everything." And nothing. Yet. It only made the hollow in Vic's chest grow deeper. That night, the dreams returned. But they weren't dreams anymore. She felt them. Visions, sensations, memories that weren't hers. The scent of blood on snow. The taste of ash on her tongue. The feeling of her body not as human, but as beast, muscles lengthened, claws in the dirt, the earth vibrating beneath her paws. She woke gasping, her skin burning, nails digging into the wooden bed frame. The mark on her shoulder had spread, fine lines crawling down her arm like roots. When she showed Lena, the alpha went still. "You're changing," she whispered. "No," Vic said. "That's not possible. I'm not one of you." "The bond doesn't care about species," Lena replied. "It's the forest. It's choosing you." "And what happens if it finishes?" Vic asked. Lena didn't answer. That same day, someone disappeared.
Soul.
Her scent vanished from the edge of the camp without a trace. A search party returned with nothing but a torn scrap of her cloak and the lingering scent of blood. It wasn't a human attack. It wasn't even a beast. It was something in between. Someone inside the pack, Rhea said, voice grim. Someone who didn't want her to speak. Speak about what? Lena demanded. Mireia stepped forward, her voice as heavy as stone. She'd been questioning the bond, asking if it was pure, if it was safe. Lena growled low in her throat. And who did she ask? The silence was telling. No one would look at Vic. The tension fractured later that night. Vic had gone to the river alone, needing space, needing air that wasn't choked with suspicion and fear. That's when Nara appeared, quiet as a shadow. "You shouldn't be here alone," she said. "I'm not afraid," Vic replied. "You should be." And then the dagger came, fast and silent, silver flashing in the moonlight. Vic ducked, barely avoiding the first strike, but the second caught her shoulder. Hot pain blossomed as she stumbled back into the water. Nara followed, eyes cold, movements precise. "The bond is wrong," she hissed. "You're corrupting her, weakening the alpha. I won't let you bring ruin to what we've built." "Lena chose me," Vic spat, bleeding, soaked, heart thundering. "The forest chose me. Then the forest is blind." Nara lunged, but before her blade could reach its mark, a growl shattered the air.
Fast.
Furious. "Lena!" She tackled Nara mid-strike, their bodies crashing into the riverbed in a blur of claws and snarls. It wasn't a fight. It was a warning. One Nara didn't survive. When it was over, Lena stood panting, covered in blood, eyes wild with grief and fury. She turned to Vic, who lay trembling in the water, clutching her wound. "You could have died," she said, voice breaking. "She tried to kill me because of you," Vic said. "Because of us." "No," Lena said. "Because of fear. And because I've been too silent." She helped Vic up, held her as if she might shatter, pressed her forehead to hers. "I won't let anyone touch you again. No matter what it costs. Even if it costs the pack," Vic whispered. "Especially if it costs the pack." That night, Lena stood before the gathered women, her face fierce, her body still streaked with blood. "Vic is no longer outsider, guest, or even bond mate," she said. "She is mine. My equal. My mate. You will respect her, or you will leave this forest." The silence afterward was total. And then, slowly, Mireia stepped forward. She looked at Vic with old, tired eyes. "Then she must complete the rite," she said. "If the forest truly claims her, it must be witnessed. In 3 nights, under the full eclipse, she must choose flesh or fur." Vic's blood ran cold. Lena's hand tightened around hers. "You don't have to do this." But Vic stood taller.
Yes.
"I do. Because whatever she was becoming, whoever she was now, it wasn't just for Lena. It was for herself." The forest went quiet 3 nights later. Not silent, watching. Every branch, every leaf, every trembling wind seemed to hold its breath as the eclipse began its slow descent across the face of the moon. The sky turned to bruised crimson, and the wolves, those who had shifted, those who hadn't, gathered in the sacred clearing where the ritual stones rose from the ground like jagged teeth. Vic stood at the center, barefoot, bare-armed, dressed in a white garment woven from fibers she didn't recognize, marked with the same runes that now laced down her skin like living tattoos. The mark of the bond had spread to her collarbone, over her shoulder blade, and down her left side, lines that glowed faintly under the dying light of the moon. Lena stood just outside the circle, tense, trembling, her eyes locked on Vic with a kind of raw devotion that made the others avert their gaze. No alpha had ever loved so openly, and certainly not a human. Mireia approached with a bowl carved from bone, filled with black ash and blood-red oil. "You understand what you face?" she asked. "If you cross the threshold and the forest finds you unworthy, your soul will fracture. You won't survive." Vic nodded. "I'm not here to be worthy. I'm here to be true." "And your choice?" Mireia asked. "Flesh or fur?" Vic turned to Lena. Their eyes met across the stone. The pain there, the longing, the love, it burned more than any fire. "I choose both," Vic said. Murmurs erupted around the clearing. Mireia's expression sharpened. "You can't straddle the wild and the human. The right demands surrender." "Then I surrender to all of it," Vic said. "To the bond, to the forest, to Lena. I won't cut myself in half to fit into one world. If that kills me, so be it." Mireia stared at her for a long moment. Then she stepped back. "Begin." Vic stepped forward. Into the circle. Into the unknown. The runes on the stones blazed with sudden light, and wind tore through the trees like the forest exhaled all at once. Then came the pain, searing, white-hot, like fire under her skin, splitting her open from the inside out. She collapsed to her knees, gasping, her hands clawing at the dirt. Her vision fractured. The forest was inside her now, every root, every howl, every buried secret. She saw Lena, as a child, crying over a fresh scar. She saw Marin, burning in silence, her soul torn from Lena's arms. She saw Nara, twisting in hatred not born of malice, but of grief. And then she saw herself, not as she had been, but as she was.
Wild, soft, fierce.
Human, and more than human. She screamed. Her body arched. The mark on her skin exploded in light, casting a glow that silenced every voice. And then stillness.
Breath.
Darkness. And a single word echoing through her bones. Rise. When Vic opened her eyes, the eclipse was complete. The moon hung red and full above, and the runes had gone dark. She stood slowly.
Alive.
Changed. Around her, the women stared.
Some in awe.
Some in fear. Lena was the first to move. She ran to her, hands cupping Vic's face, searching her eyes. Vic. Vic smiled. Still me. Lena's hands dropped to her shoulders, then slid down her arms, feeling the new energy that rippled under her skin. You did it. You chose both. You are both. Vic leaned forward, pressing their foreheads together, her breath mingling with Lena's. I was never meant to be anything else. Lena kissed her then, not with hunger, not with fire, but with reverence. And Vic melted into her, whole and complete in a way she'd never believed possible. The pack howled. All of them. A single, unified sound of acceptance, of rebirth. Vic stood in the center of it, no longer outsider, no longer divided.
She was Vic.
The woman of logic and instinct, of science and magic, of flesh and fur. She belonged to the forest now, to the pack, to Lena. And as the moon began to bleed light back into the night sky, she knew she was home. The days following the rite of the eclipse passed like smoke, ungraspable, restless, slow-burning. Vic walked through the village transformed, not only in the way others saw her, but in the way the forest itself responded. Her skin carried the mark now, no longer a symbol, but a living thing that shimmered faintly beneath her shirt with every step, every heartbeat, like it pulsed to some rhythm deeper than blood. She heard things others didn't. Whispers in the wind, the tremble of roots, the groaning breath of the earth. It terrified her, and yet it thrilled her too. Something ancient had awakened inside her, and it didn't want to sleep again. Some in the pack met her eyes with awe. Others avoided her entirely. Rhea nodded respectfully when they crossed paths, but Sol hadn't spoken to her since the ritual. Mireia observed in silence, her expression unreadable. But none of it mattered as much as the distance growing between her and Lena. It wasn't coldness, no. Lena still touched her like she was sacred, still kissed her like she might vanish, but something unspoken hovered between them. Restraint. Tension. A fear Lena wouldn't name. Vic had caught her pacing in the night, back rigid, hands trembling, the glow of her own bond mark flaring brighter than ever. But when Vic tried to touch her, Lena pulled away. It's nothing, she'd said. Just dreams. But Vic had her own dreams now. Dreams of teeth and fire, of trees whispering in languages she didn't know, of something watching from just beyond the edge of vision. She didn't tell Lena. Not yet. Instead, she wandered the deeper woods alone, letting the wildness inside her rise in careful increments. One night, she caught herself running. Not walking, not hiking, running through the trees, her lungs aching not from exertion but from exhilaration. When she stopped, she fell to her knees, laughing breathlessly, terrified and ecstatic. Her fingers were bleeding. Her senses were sharp enough to feel every heartbeat in the forest. She didn't know who she was anymore. And that was the moment it began. The air in the forest shifted. The usual song of wind and animals turned brittle.
Silent.
The sentries returned with strange reports. Footprints, without scent, claw marks carved into rock, whispers that echoed from trees long dead. Lena called a meeting. The alphas, the old ones, the blood-marked, all stood around the sacred fire, and the tension was thick enough to choke. Mireya's voice cut through the night like a knife. "She's returning." Lena stiffened. "You told me she was dead." "We hoped she was," Mireya replied. "We were wrong." Vic stepped closer, confused, heart-pounding.
Who?
Silence. Then one word. Eris. The name fell like a curse. Vic felt her stomach clench even before the whispers started. Eris. The first of them to bond outside the forest. The one who broke the sacred rules. The one who killed her own mate to absorb her power. The exile. The unspoken. The lost one. "She's not just coming back," Mireya said. "She's coming for her." All eyes turned to Vic. "What? Why me?" Her voice cracked. "Because the forest chose you," Lena said, her voice low. "And Eris believes she is owed everything the forest gives." Vic couldn't breathe. "She wants the bond?" "She wants you," Mireya said. "To break you. To take what you've become." "I'm not like her," Vic snapped. "No," Lena agreed, stepping closer, her fingers brushing Vic's wrist. "You're stronger." That night, the dreams worsened. She felt eyes watching her even as she slept, red and glowing. She heard a voice, deep and seductive and cruel, whispering through the trees. "You opened the door, little bondmate. Now let me in." And somewhere, in the farthest reaches of the forest, something began to move. The forest no longer whispered, it pressed. Heavy. Watching. Breathing down the back of Vic's neck with every step she took. The air tasted wrong now, metallic and sharp like blood on steel. And though the sun still rose and the trees still swayed, something underneath it all had shifted. It began with the shadows. They moved when they shouldn't, stretched in the wrong directions, lingered long after the light had passed. The sentries posted around the perimeter came back shaken, muttering about silhouettes with no scent, no sound, just the weight of presence, like the forest itself was holding its breath. And Vic felt it too, deep in her bones, like a thread tugging at her sternum, pulling her toward the dark places. Her dreams became more vivid, more invasive. She no longer just saw Eris, she felt her. Felt the brush of her fingers along her skin, the echo of her voice in her ear, low and mocking. "I know you, little bondmate. I know what you are. You're not theirs. You're mine." Vic woke each time gasping, sweat-soaked, her body trembling with a heat that wasn't fear, but something worse. Temptation. Lena noticed the change. She barely slept anymore, pacing at night, her gaze always finding Vic's like she was trying to tether her in place. And Vic wanted to be tethered. Gods, she did, but the pull inside her was getting harder to resist. It wasn't desire. It was connection. Wrong and dark and primal. Eris had marked her, somehow. Not with a bond like Lena's, but with something more ancient. Something born in exile and pain. Vic didn't tell Lena about the voice. About how sometimes it sounded like hers. About how she'd started to respond in her dreams. About how her body burned with need when Eris whispered. But she couldn't hide the rest. The insomnia. The shaking hands. The way her mark had started to split. Veins of red light crawling down from the original bond, a second path forming beneath it, violent and raw. One night, just after moonrise, a scream shattered the village. They ran, torches lit, weapons drawn. And what they found at the edge of the forest turned every stomach. The trees were scorched, dozens of them, blackened as if by lightning, but there had been no storm, no rain, no wind. The burn was precise, forming a wide ring around the oldest part of the woods, where the sacred roots slept. In the center of the scorch mark, bones. Not human, not animal. Twisted, warped. And next to them, carved into the earth in clawed lines, a single word in the runes of the ancients. Mate. Rhea turned pale. Mireia fell to her knees. Lena's entire body stiffened, her eyes flaring gold as she grabbed Vic's wrist and pulled her away from the crowd. She's not at the border anymore, Lena hissed. She's inside the forest. Vic nodded slowly. She's been inside me for days. Lena stopped walking. Her hand tightened around Vic's. What did you say? Vic looked at her, eyes glassy, jaw clenched. I can hear her, Lena. I don't know how, but she's in my head. She talks to me. Lena's hands dropped. Her voice broke. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want it to be true. And because I didn't want you to look at me the way you're looking at me right now. I'm not afraid of you, Lena said, chest rising and falling. I'm afraid for you. But it was too late for fear. That night, Vic went to the river alone. She knelt at the water's edge, watching her reflection tremble in the current. The mark glowed, red and gold now, the two energies pulsing in tandem, battling each other beneath her skin. She closed her eyes. Why me? She whispered. The wind rustled the leaves. And then, impossibly, a response. A voice, close, intimate, soft like silk over blades, because you're the only one who could survive loving us both. Vic's eyes snapped open, and standing behind her in the reflection was a figure. Pale skin, crimson eyes, and a smile made of ruin. Vic didn't move. She couldn't. Her breath caught as the figure in the water's reflection stepped closer, graceful, fluid, utterly wrong and yet impossibly familiar. When she finally turned around, there she was, Eris, standing barefoot on the stones, a long black cloak draped over her shoulders, eyes burning red beneath a cascade of white gold hair. Her body was tall, lithe, commanding, but it was her smile that rooted Vic in place. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't warm either. It was knowing. So you are the one, Eris said, voice like smoke curling around fire. The forest always had a taste for irony. Vic's fists clenched, heart pounding. You shouldn't be here. And yet, Eris whispered, taking a step forward, here I am. And here you are, glowing like a flame no one asked for. Vic didn't back away. She stood tall, even as her instinct screamed. What do you want? Eris tilted her head, eyes tracing every inch of her. I want what was denied to me. Power. Belonging. But mostly, I want you. Vic's throat tightened. You don't know me. Oh, Eris purred. I know exactly who you are. The little scientist who wandered into the woods thinking knowledge would protect her. The woman the forest marked twice. The mate of the one who leads. Her smile darkened. The one who doesn't realize she's more beast than any of us. You're trying to get inside my head. No, Vic, Eris said, stepping close enough for their breath to mingle. I already am. Vic stepped back like she'd been slapped. Her mark flared beneath her shirt, burning suddenly, red overtaking gold. Get out of me. You invited me in the moment you chose both, Eris said softly. You cracked the seal. You let the wild in without a leash. Vic shook her head. I didn't do this for power. No, Eris said, voice sharpening. You did it for love. And that makes you dangerous. Silence. Then Vic whispered. I'm not like you. You're exactly like me, Eris snapped. They fear you. They speak of exile already. Haven't you noticed how even your mate pulls away when you burn too hot? That struck something.
Deep. Real.
Eris stepped closer again, her voice softening. But I wouldn't fear you. I would worship you. I would let you burn. Vic's breath caught. For a second, one dangerous second, she imagined it. What it would feel like to stop holding back. To be boundless. To let the fire inside her consume. But then Lena. The memory of her voice, her hands, her strength wrapped in tenderness. The bond pulsed gold again, and Vic blinked, stepping back. You won't touch me. Eris smiled, not disappointed, amused. Not yet. And with that she vanished. No sound. No trace. Only the heat in Vic's veins and the scent of ash. When she returned to the village, the air changed. Whispers already spread. She was seen. Eris is here. She was with Vic. Rhea confronted her first. What did she say? Nothing that matters, Vic lied. Mireia approached next, demanding isolation. Until we can sever the link, she said. You must be contained. Watched. Vic refused. I'm not a threat. But the council didn't care. They feared her now. They feared the bond that pulled her both ways. And when they turned to Lena, asking her to choose between her role as alpha or her mate, Lena hesitated for only a second. I will not betray her, she said. She stays with me. That night, Vic curled into Lena's arms, silent, trembling. She touched me without touching me, Vic whispered. And part of me wanted more. Lena's jaw tightened, but she didn't let go. Then we burrowed out, she said.
Together.
But Vic knew it wouldn't be that simple. Because Eris had already lit a spark inside her. And fire never asks permission to spread. The forest felt tighter with every passing day. The air clung to Vic's skin like humidity before a storm, charged, waiting. She barely slept anymore. The dreams came faster now, more intense, more seductive. Not just whispers. Images. Flashes of Eris standing over her, touching her without touching her, tracing the lines of her mark with eyes that devoured. Sometimes Vic woke up gasping, her body aching with a hunger that wasn't hers. Or maybe it was. She couldn't tell the difference anymore. The bond with Lena remained, steady and golden, but beneath it was something darker pulsing like a second heartbeat, a quiet echo of Eris's presence threading through her veins. She'd tried to block it. She'd meditated with Mireia, sparred with Rhea, soaked herself in cold water and isolation. Nothing helped. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt two forces pulling at her. And she was stuck in the middle. Lena watched her like a wolf guarding its wounded mate. Every touch was cautious now, every kiss followed by a searching gaze, like Lena was afraid she'd lose her 1 inch at a time. And Vic hated it. Hated the fear, the silence, the shame creeping into a bond that had once burned with certainty. On the 5th night, everything broke. Vic was training with Rhea when the shift happened, unplanned, wild. Her skin shimmered mid-movement, her fingers split with claws, her teeth sharpened. Rhea backed away instantly. Stop, she shouted. But Vic couldn't. Her mind blurred, her breath roared, and for a moment, she wasn't Vic. She was fire and instinct and hunger. Rhea lunged, trying to restrain her, and Vic threw her across the training ring. Hard. The impact echoed. Blood followed. Silence dropped like a blade. Lena appeared instantly, eyes already glowing, body coiled for violence. Vic stood frozen, claws dripping, chest heaving, her own breath catching when she realized what she'd done. I didn't mean, she began. But Rhea was unconscious, and the others looked at her not with fear, but with decision. Mireia stepped forward, her voice steel. It's time. No, Lena snapped. You don't get to decide that. You've protected her long enough, Mireia said. If she can't control it, she must be contained. Vic looked at Lena, then at Rhea's bleeding form, then at her own trembling hands.
She didn't speak.
She walked, alone, into the woods. She didn't know how far she went.
Or why.
Only that the silence called to her louder than anything else.
But the silence didn't last.
You tasted it, Eris said from the shadows. Vic didn't flinch. She didn't turn. Leave me alone. But you called me, Eris replied, stepping into the moonlight. You always do when you want the truth. Vic's eyes narrowed. You think this is truth? Chaos? Violence? No, Eris said, voice velvet. Freedom. Every part of you that they fear, I love. She circled slowly, not touching, but close enough that Vic could feel the heat radiating from her. They want to tame you. I want to witness you. You killed your mate, Vic snapped. You destroyed everything. I became everything, Eris said simply. And I would do it again. But you don't have to choose. You can have them both. Power and love. But only if you stop apologizing for what you are. Vic felt it. How easy it would be to say yes. How badly part of her wanted to let go. But instead, she whispered, You don't love me. You love what I could become. That's where you're wrong, Eris said.
Because I see you, even the parts you bury.
Especially them. Then she stepped forward and kissed her. Not soft. Not violent. But inevitable. And for one terrifying heartbeat, Vic kissed her back. Then she pulled away like she'd been burned. This doesn't change anything. Of course it does, Eris murmured, her lips red, her eyes glowing. It always does. Vic turned and ran. Ran until the trees blurred, until the forest cut her skin, until her lungs threatened to burst. When she reached the village, she collapsed. Lena found her in the dirt. What happened? Vic looked up at her, tears on her cheeks, lips still stinging. I think I'm losing myself. Lena knelt beside her, cupping her face. Then I'll hold on to you until you find your way back. But neither of them saw the red flare that pulsed beneath Vic's collarbone, Eris's mark, now buried beneath the gold. The pain started that night. Not in her limbs, not in her skin, but deep inside her veins. Vic woke with a scream that was quickly muffled by Lena's hand. She thrashed in the bed, her body burning, her breath ragged, the bond mark glowing gold, and beneath it, a jagged pulse of red tearing through like fire, trying to eat light. Lena held her close, whispering her name, anchoring her through the storm. When it finally passed, Vic was soaked in sweat, her back arched against the firs, heart racing like prey. It's happening, she whispered. She's in me. Lena's jaw clenched. She doesn't get to have you. But they both knew it wasn't that simple anymore. Eris hadn't just touched Vic. She'd marked her. And now two powers lived inside her. One born of bond, one born of ruin. Over the next days, the symptoms worsened. Vic would wake up already standing, not remembering how she got there. She spoke in languages no one recognized. The wind bent toward her when she was angry. The trees recoiled when she cried. Her eyes flickered between gold and crimson. And the mark on her body, now split, shimmered like a war between gods under her skin. The Matilla watched in silence. Some with sympathy, most with fear. Mireia led a gathering, her voice heavy with prophecy. This has happened before, she said. When power is divided, the body becomes the battlefield, and the soul, the casualty. Rhea crossed her arms. So, what do? Wait until she explodes. We give her a choice, Mireia replied, like we did with Eris. She chooses who she is. And we honor it. You mean we hunt her, Lena growled. Mireia didn't answer. That was the answer. When Vic heard, she didn't argue. She didn't cry. She stood in the center of the circle, hands clenched, eyes steady. You want me to choose? Fine. Then let me speak to both of them. That night, she went into the forest alone. Again. But this time, not as prey. She walked into the ancient grove where the stones were cracked and blackened from old magic. And Eris was waiting, lounging against the altar like a queen already crowned. Took you long enough, she said. You look like hell. Vic ignored her. What did you do to me? I unlocked you, Eris said. That little kiss wasn't about seduction. It was ignition. You're killing me. No, Eris said calmly. You're killing yourself by trying to be both. The forest doesn't accept contradiction. You have to pick. One bond. One truth. One path. And you think I should pick you? I think you already did. Eris stepped forward, her hand hovering over the red part of the mark. You could rule the forest, Vic. You could rip the veil between beast and woman. They would bow. Even Lena. Especially Lena. Vic looked up. And what about love? Eris paused. Love is fire. It burns. That's what you're feeling. Not weakness. Power. No, Vic said, her voice low. You don't understand what love is. You only understand control. And what do you think Lena is doing? Eris snapped. Keeping you small. Keeping you safe. But you're not meant to be safe. You're meant to burn. Vic stared at her, trembling. Then maybe I'm meant to burn with her. Not for you. Eris snarled. She'll never survive what you're becoming. Then she'll become with me. Power exploded through her then, not red, not gold, but something new. A fusion. Light like dawn breaking over blood-soaked ground. Eris recoiled, shielding her eyes. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "Choosing." Vic's body lifted from the ground, her feet no longer touching the soil. The marks on her skin flared, twisted, collided, and became one. The forest screamed around her. Trees bent, air cracked, and when she dropped to the ground, she was something entirely new. Human and wild. Magic and memory. Herself. She opened her eyes. Pure white. Eris vanished in a burst of smoke, but her scream lingered. Vic returned to the village at dawn. Her skin was scarred with light, her eyes calm, her steps steady. Lena was waiting, expression unreadable. "Did you choose?" she asked. Vic stepped into her arms.
Yes.
"I chose you." Lena didn't speak. She just kissed her, long, deep, shaking with relief. But the war wasn't over. Not yet. Because Eris was wounded now. And a cornered predator never flees. It attacks. It began with silence. The kind that didn't belong. Not the peaceful hush of early morning, not the gentle stillness of mist on bark. This was something else. A silence that suffocated. That swallowed breath and broke instinct. The birds didn't sing. The wind didn't stir. The wolves didn't howl. And then the first tree fell. Not from age or wind, but from rot. From the inside out. Crumbling, diseased, black. Then another. Then two more. A line of death carving its way toward the village like a slow, deliberate warning. The moment the second line of sentries failed to return, Lena ordered the alarm horns blown. The sound cracked the air like a bone. Women dropped everything. Children were moved to the inner caverns. Warriors donned blades, claws, teeth. Vic stood at the center of it all, calm in a way that made even Mireia stare. Her mark now glowed white gold down her arm and across her ribs, veins of red buried, but still alive, like a scar that refused to close. Lena approached, tense, armored in leather and fury. "She's coming." Vic nodded. "I know. This isn't just revenge," Lena said. "She wants you. She wants to make you choose her again.
Publicly.
In front of everyone. She'll use blood to prove a point. Then we don't give her the chance." "What are you thinking?" Lena asked, already knowing she'd hate the answer. "Let me meet her at the gate." "No, Lena. No." Lena stepped in, hands gripping her face, her voice low and cracked with fear. "I already lost one mate to war. I won't watch you walk into it alone." "You're not losing me," Vic whispered, forehead resting against hers. "But you need to trust that I can face this. That I have to." The silence stretched between them like the moment before lightning. And then Lena nodded once. Sharp, reluctant, final. Vic walked to the forest's edge just as the rot stopped, as if sensing her presence. The trees stood blackened, steaming wounded. And from that line of decay, Eris emerged.
Alone. Or so it seemed. Her cloak was gone.
Her body was slick with red symbols painted across pale skin like war runes, her eyes two pits of glowing crimson. "You're beautiful when you stop pretending," she said. "You're disgusting when you think you know me," Vic answered. "You kissed me," Eris purred. "And you burned for it." "I also burned it out." Eris grinned, sharp and wild. "You think choosing Lena makes you whole? No, little wolf. It makes you vulnerable." She lifted her hand. Shadows surged behind her, rising from the trees like smoke becoming flesh, creatures twisted in form, born from old magic, half wolf, half specter. Vic didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "This ends now." "No," Eris said. "This starts now." The ground split. Screams echoed. The creatures charged. And Vic, glowing with light and fury, raised her hands and met them head-on.
She didn't shift.
She didn't run. She became something new. Energy burst from her palms like sunlight breaking stone. She threw back the first wave with nothing but her will, her body alive with ancient forest magic that had chosen her and her alone. Behind her,
the Matilla charged. Rhea.
Mireia. Dozens of women with blades and claws and growls that shook the trees. And Lena, in full shift, sleek and massive, her golden eyes fixed on Vic and Vic alone. Battle erupted.
Fire. Blood.
Screams. But in the chaos, Vic only saw Eris, walking calmly through the carnage toward the village. Toward Lena. Vic moved, faster than breath, intercepting her before she reached the center. "She's not yours to touch," Vic snarled. "She was never mine," Eris said. "But you were." "Not anymore." Eris struck first, magic laced with pain and memory. Vic staggered as 1,000 past screams tore through her mind. Eris's memories, her loneliness, her betrayal, her rage. "Feel it," Eris shouted. "Feel what they made me." But Vic gritted her teeth and screamed back. "I am not your mirror." And she threw it back. All of it. Every shadow. Every lie. The mark on her skin lit up, searing white gold erupting in a shockwave that threw Eris back into the ash-covered soil. For the first time, Eris looked afraid. She crawled, stumbled, rose with blood at her lips. "You could have been a goddess." "No," Vic said, walking toward her. "I could have been you, and I didn't want that." Eris snarled, lunged, one last time. But a golden blur intercepted her midair.
Lena.
Shifted. Massive. Fangs bared. She slammed Eris into the earth and held her there, snarling. "Touch her again," Lena growled. "And I end you." Vic stepped forward and placed a hand on Lena's fur. "Let her go." "Vic, she's already lost." Lena hesitated, then obeyed. Eris lay in the dirt, panting, broken, her eyes dimming. "I loved you," she whispered. "You loved control," Vic answered. "And I broke free." She turned away, walked back into the light of her people. And behind her, Eris vanished into smoke. The forest exhaled, not in wind or whispers, but in breath, deep, long, cleansing. The air that once tasted of ash and war now carried the scent of moss, rain, and something Vic hadn't realized she missed. Peace. But peace didn't feel soft. It felt raw, open. The kind of silence left behind after screaming, after bleeding, after choosing to survive. The battle had ended less than 12 hours ago. The ground still bore scorch marks, and the trees still wept sap like tears. Some of the Matilla nursed wounds. Others buried sisters. Mireia said little. Rhea hadn't spoken at all. And Lena was everywhere, managing recovery with sharp orders and soft touches, commanding with the ease of someone born to lead, but too heart-tired to pretend it didn't cost her. Vic watched her from a distance for most of the day, unsure of how to approach, unsure of how to be. Something inside her still crackled, residual magic, raw instinct, the final remnants of the fusion that had burned Eris from her bones. She wasn't afraid of it, but she didn't know what it meant yet. All she knew was that the mark on her skin no longer pulsed with conflict. It had settled into something new, something whole. And all she needed was Lena. She found her at dusk, standing alone at the edge of the village, looking out at the blackened grove. "You didn't kill her," Lena said without turning. "I wanted to," Vic replied. But she'd already lost. She just didn't know how to die. Lena nodded once. "That was mercy." "No," Vic said. "That was strength." Silence stretched. Then Lena turned, and her eyes locked onto Vic's. No glow, no fury, just ache. "You scared me." Vic stepped closer. "I scared myself. There were moments I thought." Lena didn't finish. She didn't have to. Vic reached for her hand, lacing their fingers. "You held on."
"Even when I didn't ask."
"Especially then." "You didn't have to ask," Lena whispered. "I was already yours." Vic leaned in, resting her forehead against Lena's. "Then come with me. Not as alpha. Not as protector.
Just you."
"And me." Lena didn't hesitate. She followed. They entered Vic's cabin together, and the moment the door closed, the tension snapped. Not like fear. Like fire. like something long-caged finally breaking free. Lena pressed her against the wall, not rough, but kneading. Their mouths met in silence. No words left to say. Only breath. Only heat. Vic moaned softly as Lena kissed down her jaw, her neck, her collarbone, hands trailing over the marks that still shimmered faintly. Vic pulled Lena's shirt over her head, revealing old scars, new bruises, skin that carried battle and belonging. She kissed each mark like it was holy. Lena exhaled her name like prayer. Their clothes fell away piece by piece, but it wasn't frantic. It was reverent. Their hands traced familiar places with new hunger, as if rediscovering, reclaiming. Lena pushed Vic back onto the bed, climbed over her, and paused. "You're sure?" she asked, voice hoarse. "I've never been more sure," Vic whispered. "Don't hold back this time." Lena didn't. Their bodies met in a rhythm born from survival and longing. Every kiss said, "I'm here." Every movement said, "You're mine." Every gasp, every sigh, every trembling grip between thighs and lips and skin said, "We made it." Vic arched beneath Lena, crying out as pleasure surged through her like power. And Lena followed, forehead against her shoulder, whispering her name like an anchor. After, they lay tangled in the sheets, sweat cooling on their skin, hearts still pounding in sync. Lena brushed hair from Vic's face. "This time we keep it. No more running. No more war. Only us," Vic murmured, eyes heavy, body limp with satisfaction. "Only this." Outside, the forest was quiet. Not waiting. Not warning. Just breathing.
Alive. Safe. For the first time.
The sun rose over a wounded forest, its golden light touching blackened bark, cracked earth, and new shoots of green fighting their way through ash. The village moved slowly now, like it was learning to breathe again. But something beneath that stillness was shifting, and at the center of it was Vic. She didn't wake the way she used to. Sleep didn't hold her the same. Now, she surfaced from dreams like stepping through water, heavy, charged, full of strange knowledge she didn't remember learning. Symbols that pulsed behind her eyes. Names that echoed in forgotten languages. She'd blink and feel the heartbeat of the trees. Hear the moss breathing. Smell the pulse of magic in the soil. Lena noticed first. The way animals followed Vic without fear. The way the weather shifted when her emotions spiked. How the scar of her bond mark now shimmered with a faint iridescence. No longer just gold or red, but all colors. All things. "You're becoming something more," Lena said one morning, tracing the mark with gentle fingers. Vic only nodded. She didn't have the words yet, but the forest did. That evening, the council called her. Mireia stood before the oldest totem, her eyes sharp, her voice tired. "You weren't just changed," she said. "You were claimed. The forest chose you in ways we've never seen. That power needs direction. And we're offering it." Vic tilted her head. "What are you saying?" "We want you to join the circle. As the voice of the wild." A pause. "But you must be tested first." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some approving. Some tense. Others furious. Rhea, who had once trusted her, now looked away. Others whispered, "Not wolf. Not blood. Not real." Vic felt their judgment like thorns under her skin. And yet, she didn't retreat. She stepped forward. "I accept the test." Lena moved beside her, protective, silent, but her presence spoke louder than any blade. That night, the trial began. Vic was led deep into the untouched part of the forest, beyond sacred ground, beyond memory. A place where no fire had reached, where time was soft and strange. She was left alone. No tools. No weapons. Just instinct. "Survive 3 nights," Mireia had said. "Return untouched, and the forest will have spoken." The first night, Vic was hunted. Not by beasts, but by shadows. Echoes of her past, her doubts. She saw herself lashing out, eyes red, hurting Rhea again. Saw Lena walking away. Saw Eris's smirk as she bled out. The forest whispered, "Is this who you are?" And Vic whispered back, "No, I am more." The second night, The wild tested her. Storms without wind. Rivers that changed direction. A sky full of eyes. Her body ached, burned, bent, but didn't break. She ran with wolves she didn't recognize, hunted prey that didn't exist, ate berries that made her hallucinate stars. And through it all, she kept moving.
Kept choosing. Kept being.
The third night, the forest was silent.
Not testing.
Watching. She stood alone in a glade where the moon fell perfectly into a pool of still water. And there, in her reflection, she saw herself not as wolf, not as woman, but as bridge. Between worlds, between truths, between war and peace. And the mark on her skin pulsed once, then settled. The forest had spoken. She returned at dawn, dirt-covered, half-wild, glowing. The crowd waited in silence. When she stepped past the totem, barefoot and alive, the hush broke. Some cheered, some bowed. Others turned and left. Lena moved first. She didn't say a word, just stepped into Vic's space and kissed her like it was law. Like there was no more question of who she belonged to, or what she'd become. Mireia raised her staff. The forest has chosen. The bond is true. The blood may not be hers, but the wild is. And the circle opened. Vic didn't walk through it. She claimed it. Not as alpha, not as mate, but as herself. And the forest bent in recognition. The forest no longer whispered. It spoke.
Loudly.
Constantly. In roots that pushed up through the soil beneath the village paths. In trees that shed bark shaped like warnings. In wind that circled Vic's body with a chill that was never cold, only urgent. She tried to sleep, but the voices never stopped. Not voices of people, voices of memory. Of time. Of something older than language trying to make itself understood through sensation. She'd wake with her hands dirty, heart racing, mouth full of blood she hadn't tasted. Lena began to notice the toll. "You're not resting," she whispered one night, holding Vic close, forehead pressed to her damp skin. "I don't think I meant to." Vic's voice was a rasp. "There's something else. Something the forest wants me to see. To stop." Mireia confirmed it the next day. This power doesn't come without consequence. The forest chose you because it needs you. It's shifting again. Shifting into what? Vic asked. The elder looked toward the horizon. Into something it fears. The dreams began again, more vivid than ever. Visions not of the future, but of the past. A past that didn't belong to her. A woman with a blade of bone. A fire set by wolves. A betrayal in the snow. A scream that wasn't her voice, but carried her pain. Lena woke beside her during one of them, shaking her, panicked. "You said a name in your sleep." "Marin," Vic breathed. Lena froze. Her eyes hardened. "That's not your memory." "No," Vic said softly. "It's yours." And for the first time since the eclipse, Lena looked afraid. She stood and paced, back bare, scars glinting in the low light. "The forest gave you me, my pain, my past." "Why?" "Because it's not finished," Vic said. "Because something about what happened to her, to you, still echoes." "I buried it," Lena said. "You survived it," Vic corrected. "That's not the same." That night, the forest pulled them both. Together. To the old grave, unmarked, hidden, where Lena had buried Marin's blade in silence and blood. The air was wrong there. Still. Pressurized. Waiting. Vic reached for the earth, and her body locked. Her eyes rolled back. And suddenly she wasn't Vic. She was Marin. For a blink. For a breath. Screaming. Burned.
Bound. Betrayed.
Not by Eris, by another. A name she couldn't grasp. A shadow in the shape of a wolf. Vic dropped to her knees, gasping, sobbing, as Lena pulled her close. "It wasn't Eris," Vic whispered. "She didn't kill her. She tried to save her." "No," Lena whispered. "That's not. The forest lied to you. Or maybe you lied to yourself to survive it." The truth settled between them like smoke. Eris had turned dark, but not because she was born wrong. Because no one had believed her. Because the one who murdered Marin had worn the face of the pack. Someone who had once been alpha. Someone still alive. Vic and Lena returned to the village changed. Quiet. Focused. And when Vic stood before the circle, she didn't ask permission. She spoke. There is a wound in this place that never healed. The blood spilled long ago didn't wash away. It seeped into the roots. And now the forest is bleeding from the inside out. The elders went still. Mireia whispered, "You saw it." "Yes," Vic said. "I felt it." And then she looked to one figure in the crowd who hadn't spoken, who hadn't blinked, who hadn't aged since the last blood moon. The former alpha. The one who trained Lena before she was leader. The one who had vanished for years after Marin's death and returned as if nothing had happened. Vic stepped forward. "It was you."
Gasps.
Murmurs. A flicker of golden eyes. "You killed Marin. And blamed Eris. You feared what they'd become. What they'd awaken." The woman stepped forward, slow, controlled, a half-smile blooming like poison. "And now look what you've become." Lena was already moving, but Vic held her back. "Not yet." The former alpha, Elara, spoke, her voice silk over knives. "I did what had to be done. I saved the pack. You think this piece was an accident?"
No.
"It was bought. With blood. And if I have to spill yours to keep it, I will." But the forest didn't wait. Vines surged from the earth. Roots cracked stone. The trees howled without wind. Elara turned just in time to see the forest rise against her. It had chosen Vic, not just as its voice, but as its sword. The judgment was not loud. It was slow. It was final. When it ended, Elara was gone, swallowed into the roots. No screams. No trace. Just silence. Just peace. Vic collapsed into Lena's arms, shaking. "It's over," she whispered. "The real rot is gone." But Lena held her tighter, her voice soft.
No.
"The real part starts now." And as they stood at the center of the village, the forest quiet around them, the bond between them burned steadier than ever. One part remained. One step. The future. The forest bloomed.
Slowly.
Deliberately. As if it, too, had waited for this moment. Buds unfurled on branches long thought barren. The river sang a little louder. The wind, once sharp with warning, now danced soft across the village paths. And for the first time in what felt like lifetimes, there was no blood on the earth. No war in the distance. No haunting in the trees. Only stillness. Only peace. Only after. Vic stood at the edge of the sacred pool, barefoot, her reflection rippling with every breath. The mark across her skin had settled into something luminous and permanent, a pattern that pulsed not like power, but like home. Lena watched her from a distance, arms crossed, the gold in her eyes soft now, less flame, more sunlight. They hadn't spoken much since Elara was taken. Not because there was nothing to say, but because words had limits. And what had passed between them now lived beneath language. It was felt, understood, woven into skin and soul. Still, Lena approached, steps quiet, sure. "You ready?" Vic nodded. "I think I was always walking toward this." "Even before you knew it?" "Especially then." Lena smiled. "That sounds like something a wolf would say." Vic turned to her. "I guess I stopped fighting what I am." "No," Lena whispered, stepping close. "You became who you were meant to be." The ceremony was simple. Not grand. Not theatrical. Just right. The Matilla gathered under the full moon. No one wore armor. No one sharpened blades. They came in furs and linen, with bare feet and open chests. Rhea stood beside Mireia, her eyes no longer wary but proud. Even the younger wolves, once unsure of Vic's place among them, had begun to carry themselves differently, softer around her. Protective of her. Not because she demanded it, but because she had earned it. The totem flames were lit. The chants began, low and rhythmic, a pulse beneath the earth itself. Vic and Lena stood at the center, facing each other, hands clasped, foreheads touching. "You came into my life like a trespasser," Lena whispered, "but you made it your home." "You took me prisoner," Vic murmured, but you are the one who set me free." Mireia stepped forward, staff raised. "Tonight, the forest does not bind you. It recognizes you. As mate, as soul, as flame and root and river. Speak your vow and be witnessed." Vic inhaled. Her voice was steady. "I vow to walk beside you, even when the path is fire. I vow to fight for you, even when I'm afraid. I vow to choose you, again and again, even when the wild in me pulls in every other direction. You are my center, my peace, my chaos, my home." Lena's voice cracked, but her gaze held. "I vow to protect you, even when you don't need it. I vow to follow you, even into the dark. I vow to never ask you to be smaller than you are. You are my fury, my calm, my moon, my mate." The moment the words were spoken, the forest responded. Not with sound, with feeling, a thrum beneath the ground, a vibration in the bones. Every tree shimmered, every flame bent toward them, and the mark across their skin, Lena's old gold and Vic's new fusion, flared in sync, casting a radiant light that painted the entire clearing.
They kissed.
And it wasn't rushed or desperate or heavy with survival. It was forever. And when they parted, the village erupted.
Drums.
Howls. Laughter.
Joy.
Not celebration of leadership, but of love, of becoming, of all the things they had endured and overcome. The night turned into firelight and stories, shared meat and skin against skin, dances that mimicked the hunt. And later, much later, Vic and Lena slipped away, into the deep trees, into each other. They made love slowly this time. No edge, no fear, just exploration, reverence, trust. Vic ran her hands down Lena's back, like memorizing a map. Lena kissed the hollow of Vic's throat like blessing a temple. And when they reached the peak of each other's bodies, they didn't cry out. They breathed. In unison. In awe. In completion. After, tangled in furs, stars above, hearts aligned, Vic whispered, "Do you think the forest is quiet now?" Lena kissed her temple.
"No."
"I think it's singing."
And it was.
In the leaves. In the roots. In the spaces between them. The story didn't end here. But the war did. And from now on, whatever came, they'd face it together. Thank you so much for being here and for believing in this channel. If you feel in your heart, you can donate with super thanks so I can focus more and more on this project. Your support helps me keep creating these love stories and bringing them to life for you. See